There is a distinct human presence that moves through the world with an almost invisible grace, a core of stillness that seems impervious to the relentless turbulence of the external environment. They are the individuals who maintain composure when chaos reigns, who do not rush to prove themselves right, and who absorb pressure without fracturing. They are composed, steady, grounded, and utterly unshakable. If you observe them solely through the lens of frantic modern life, you might mistakenly conclude that they feel nothing. You might believe their calm is born of apathy, indifference, or emotional coldness. But the truth is far more profound, far more demanding, and ultimately far more powerful. They feel everything, but they have simply chosen not to react to it. Their serenity is not the absence of emotion, but the ultimate mastery over it. It is what happens when deep, complex emotion meets profound self-understanding. The cornerstone of this quiet strength lies in understanding the difference between a reaction and a response. A reaction is a mechanical, reflexive, and often destructive impulse. It is the immediate, unedited flash of emotion, anger, panic, or defensiveness that surrenders all your hard-won inner power to an external event. It is a biological inevitability that confirms that the chaotic world outside owns the peace inside your mind. The moment you react impulsively, you become a prisoner of the circumstance that triggered you. A reaction is slavery. A response, however, is freedom. It is a conscious, intentional, and considered choice that is born not from the initial impact, but from a deliberate moment of stillness. Calm people have cultivated their superpower, the pause. When a stressful stimulus strikes, a harsh criticism, an unexpected failure, a moment of profound uncertainty, they do not immediately fire back. They simply stop. In that tiny, invisible fraction of a second, they create a sanctuary between the event and their behavior. They train their minds to reside exclusively in the space between the stimulus and the output. This moment of stillness is not empty time. It is the incubator where wisdom lives, where perspective is clarified, and where the higher, rational part of the brain retains the self-control necessary to hear its own voice, even when the world is deafeningly loud. Psychologically, this is the activation of the prefrontal cortex, the executive control center of the brain, stepping in before the amygdala, the center of fear and emotional response, can completely hijack the system. Calm people have, through practice and often through past emotional turbulence, balanced the amygdala. It still signals danger, but it no longer seizes full control. They have developed what is known in cognitive science as response flexibility, the ability to choose their response rather than let it be automatically chosen for them by their emotions. This pause allows them to channel their emotion, not suppress it. They are not striving for an inert, Zen-like void where feeling ceases to exist. Instead, they embrace the fullness of their emotional experience, but with discernment. They do not eliminate anger. They transform it into focused, productive clarity regarding a boundary or necessary change. They do not banish fear. They transform it into cautious, well-planned preparation. They do not simply ignore sadness. They transform it into deep, empathetic reflection and acceptance of loss. They are not emotionless. They are emotionally fluent, capable of reading, interpreting, and directing the complex, shifting language of their own inner life. They understand that emotion is information, not instruction. This is why, in an argument, they can hear something genuinely hurtful, feel the sting of it, yet not immediately strike back with an equally hurtful retort. This is why they can sit in the discomfort of deep uncertainty without frantically rushing to fill the silence or force a premature resolution. The ability to hold the space for a moment, to breathe when the instinct is to blame, and to let go when the impulse is to hold on, is the core mechanism of their unshaken composure. The true goal of this stillness is not external victory, it is internal liberation. They recognize that fighting every battle that presents itself, reacting to every insult, and seeking to prove themselves right in every minor dispute only makes them a prisoner to everyone else's opinions and behavior. They realize that reacting to everything makes you a prisoner of everything. The calmer they become, the freer they are, because their internal state is no longer contingent upon the unpredictable, often messy behavior of the external world. They become the ocean itself, deep and vast, rather than a small boat tossed around by every passing wave. They separate the external turbulence from their internal equilibrium, and that inner space is treated as sacred, guarded territory. The foundation of this stillness is the quiet internal whisper they have cultivated. This, too, will pass. This voice is not blind, naive optimism. It is the voice of memory, the memory of having survived past storms, heartbreak, rejection, and loss. They have lived through enough to know with absolute certainty that even the worst moments eventually fade, that panic doesn't accelerate healing, and that peace is found not in desperate control, but in profound, quiet acceptance. It is the realization that life continues, even after the moments that once felt utterly unbearable. This memory becomes their ultimate anchor, enabling them to choose peace, even when every instinct demands a fight. The tranquility observed in calm people often masks a powerful hidden truth. Their serene disposition is not a natural gift. It is a discipline forged in fire. They were not born this way. They became this way. Their current state of stillness is the result of an intense, prolonged process of emotional alchemy, the turning of leaden trauma and confusion into golden wisdom. When you encounter someone consistently unruffled by life's vicissitudes, you are not witnessing a lack of problems, but a profound success in handling those problems privately over years of hard-won experience. These individuals almost universally pass through intense, chaotic phases of being their exact opposite. They were once the quintessential overthinkers, the perpetual worriers, the hyper-vigilant individuals consumed by the need for external validation. They cared too much about what everyone thought. They tried to please everyone. They tried to control everything, to fix every perceived flaw in their environment or in the people around them. Their life was an exhausting, unending campaign against reality. Every unexpected turn, every criticism, and every failure triggered an intense, consuming effort to restore a fragile, self-imposed order. They lived in a state of chronic, low-level emergency, constantly drained by their own unsustainable commitment to external perfection. This period of emotional overdrive served a crucial, if painful, purpose. It taught them an undeniable lesson that no book or therapist could impart with the same visceral force. Every time they pushed against life, every time they tried to micromanage outcomes, every time they tried to enforce their will upon the world, they were met with the same resistance, that life does not bend to your will, no matter how hard you push. They experienced the profound futility of fighting against reality, realizing that panic does not speed up healing, and desperate action often accelerates the very chaos they were trying to avoid. Their frantic efforts only made things worse, leading to deeper regret, more apologies, and a compounding of their emotional debt. The turning point, the initiation into true calmness, was simply exhaustion. They eventually reached a stage of complete burnout, a weary realization that they had become tired of their own chaos. They grew tired of overreacting, tired of constantly defending their positions, tired of explaining their intentions, and tired of the burning resentment that comes from holding inner grudges. Peace, which had always been a desirable outcome, suddenly became a non-negotiable necessity, a core value prioritized above the desperate need to be right, to win an argument, or to achieve a perfect, idealized life. At that moment of surrender, they stopped trying to control the uncontrollable ocean of life. Instead of fighting the waves, they shifted their focus entirely inward, beginning the process of learning how to surf it. This transition is not passive. It is the most intense form of active control, the control of self. They chose to build a discipline when they realized that emotional chaos simply did not serve their well-being anymore. Their peace is hard-earned, forged in pain, not perfection. They carry storms inside that no one can see, but they have learned not to live inside that break anymore. This quiet revolution leads to emotional maturity, which fundamentally changes their understanding of themselves and their emotions. They realize that expression does not always require eruption. They can feel the full intensity of an emotion, such as profound sadness or sharp anger, but instead of broadcasting it or acting immediately upon it, they hold it gently until it dissolves or transforms. Their sadness becomes a deep reflection. Their anger becomes a clear boundary. Their fear becomes a grounded faith in their ability to cope. This alchemy, the ability to process intense emotion into pure self-awareness, is the true core of their stability. Consequently, calm people redefine success. They no longer measure their worth by how much they achieve externally or how many arguments they win, but by how peacefully they live. They have discovered a psychological truth hidden in plain sight. Resisting pain only converts it into suffering. When something bad happens, the emotionally reactive person spirals into, "Why me?" The calm person, having accepted the flow of life, asks, "Why not me?" Not out of defeat, but out of a sober understanding that life happens to everyone. By stopping the resistance to what is, they immediately remove half of the emotional chaos. They have made peace with uncertainty, and in a world obsessed with certainty, that peace is power. The calm individual views their personal energy, mental, emotional, and physical, as a sacred and non-renewable currency. They are acutely aware that the constant noise, drama, and urgency of the modern world act as a relentless tax on this energy, and they possess the strategic wisdom to refuse payment. Their restraint is not a passive trait. It is a highly active, conscious form of energy management. They have realized that the primary source of human exhaustion is not physical exertion, but the constant leakage of attention and emotion into things that do not matter. This realization dictates a profound shift in their decision-making. They prioritize expenditure only on things that build, meaning things that align with their core values, long-term goals, and internal peace, and they ruthlessly conserve energy by disengaging from things that break or deplete them. For the calm person, silence and stillness become powerful defensive and offensive tools. Their quiet demeanor is a shield against manipulative intent. They recognize that nothing confuses, frustrates, or disarms chaos more quickly than someone who simply refuses to join it. When everyone else is scrambling to respond, debate, or escalate, the calm person pauses, waits, and in that wait, they gain a critical perspective that others rushing miss entirely. They see the motives, the patterns of behavior, and the underlying dynamics that only reveal themselves in moments of profound stillness. This strategic restraint manifests in clear, pragmatic guidelines for engagement. Energy conservation. They understand that not every battle deserves their engagement. They have internalized the lesson that an argument rarely changes anyone's mind, but it almost always costs a person their peace. The wisdom of silence. They know that not every insult deserves a reply. They allow inflammatory words to pass through them without letting those words attach to their core self-worth. Silence in these moments is not defeat. It is a higher form of communication that says, I respect my peace more than I respect your need for drama. The choice to walk away. When faced with chronic misunderstanding or relentless negativity, they have the courage to walk away. They will explain their position if it is worthwhile, but if they recognize they are dealing with resistance rather than genuine curiosity, they choose the path of least emotional friction. They know that trying to force truth or understanding is the fastest way to multiply suffering. The presence of a calm person is, therefore, inherently magnetic. They don't walk into a room and demand attention. They quietly and automatically lower the noise floor simply by existing in their own equilibrium. Their energy communicates safety, quiet confidence, and an internal alignment that feels like gravity. You feel safe around them precisely because their energy assures you that rushing, panicking, or fighting is not necessary. They have made a fundamental break from societal addiction to reaction. They understand the paradoxical nature of power. True power is not found in aggression or volume, but in control over the self. Their calmness is, in essence, a quiet rebellion against the frantic, reactive mindset of the masses. They spend their energy wisely, ensuring that small reactions do not snowball into massive regrets, and that petty drama does not destroy their hard-won peace. This self-mastery gives them an incredible advantage. While most people are fighting mental battles, replaying arguments, overthinking past mistakes, and constantly preparing for future conflict, the calm person knows that silence can often say more than words ever could. They know that the greatest strength is simply not reacting, choosing instead to guard their attention and their inner narrative fiercely. Calm people do not merely react differently, they see the world differently. Their inner stillness is not an end in itself, but a powerful tool that sharpens perception, allowing them to filter out noise and focus on underlying patterns. While the emotionally reactive person is zoomed in on the immediate, overwhelming moment, the insult, the deadline, the minor catastrophe, the calm individual deliberately zooms out. They cultivate a timeless perspective, looking at the bigger picture to assess the true weight and longevity of any current disruption. Where most people see chaos, they see patterns. Where most people see insurmountable problems, they see lessons disguised as challenges. Where most people see abrupt endings, they see beginnings often cloaked in the form of necessary change. This cognitive ability to frame events within a larger context provides their essential balance. They understand that today's profound emotional crisis is, more often than not, a temporary visitor that will eventually become a faded memory. They respect time because they know that time reveals what raw emotion hides. This profound perspective allows them to detach from the need for external fairness. When misfortune strikes, the typical spiral begins with "why me?", a question rooted in the expectation that life should be easy or just. The calm person, having accepted the flow of life, internally asks, "Why not me?" Not out of defeat, but out of a sober, grounded understanding that life happens to everyone. They recognize that adversity is the common human condition, and resisting that truth only multiplies their suffering by adding emotional friction to natural pain. They have discovered a fundamental psychological truth. Pain without resistance is merely sensation. Pain with resistance becomes suffering. By stopping the futile fight against what is, they immediately remove the primary source of emotional chaos. Their acceptance is not passive resignation. It is an active, courageous choice to move with the current rather than exhaust themselves swimming against an unstoppable tide. This mastery over perspective grants them the ultimate form of freedom, the emotional separation of the external world from their internal sanctuary. They have defined a sacred inner space that is not for rent, and they do not allow every unpredictable, loud, or cruel external event to dictate their internal state. This is why calm people often seem to operate in a different dimension, because they do. They live in that crucial space between stimulus and response, choosing whether to feed the chaos or to nurture their peace. In essence, calm people are masters of simplification. They realize how much of daily life is merely noise pretending to be important. Once you see this truth, it becomes impossible to unsee, leading to a deliberate decluttering process. Decluttering thoughts, letting go of overthinking and mental replays. Decluttering relationships, choosing quality, genuine connection over drama and validation. Decluttering efforts, focusing energy on meaning rather than mere validation or chasing quick success. They have concluded that the ultimate goal is not to have a perfect life, but to have a peaceful mind. This peace is not found by fixing everything outside of them. It is created by learning to rest within themselves, even when nothing outside makes rational sense. Their calmness is the ultimate indicator of emotional intelligence, a measure of maturity that transcends age. They are not chasing peace anymore. They have become it. The strength of the calm individual is not merely behavioral or philosophical. It is rooted in measurable neuroscience. The ability to maintain composure during a crisis reflects a trained, physically altered relationship between two key parts of the brain, the ancient emotional center and the modern rational control system. The core seat of fear, emotional response, and the fight-or-flight reflex is the amygdala. In most people, when a stressful stimulus arrives, the amygdala quickly hijacks the entire system, leading to the rapid, unfiltered reactions, the panic, the argument, the emotional shutdown that define chaos. However, in individuals who have actively practiced mindfulness, meditation, or who have been refined through intense emotional experiences, the amygdala becomes significantly more balanced. It still signals danger, as it should, but it no longer possesses the power to seize executive control. This control is asserted by the prefrontal cortex, the rational, planning, and judgment-based part of the brain. The calm person has effectively strengthened the connection between these two areas, ensuring that the prefrontal cortex consistently steps in and asserts dominance before the emotion can take over. This neurological training is the physical manifestation of the pause. It is the difference between an instantaneous biological reflex and a deliberate, chosen action. Their brain is simply faster at regulating the emotional signal, allowing them to process the data of the emotion without being enslaved by the destructive impulse it generates. This internal stability has a profound social consequence. Calm people become the anchors in their social circles and communities. While everyone else is panicking, spinning, or escalating, the calm person naturally steps in to hold the emotional space for others. They are the ones who can look someone in the eye during a high-stakes crisis and sincerely say, "It's okay," because they genuinely believe it. They are not saying it because they are cold or detached. They are saying it because they know from deep experience and neural training that chaos is not permanent. Their compassion is often misunderstood. Many mistake calm for coldness, but the truth is that it usually means compassion. By refusing to add their own fear or reaction to a situation, they create a reservoir of stability for others to draw from. They become the safe space where friends, family, or colleagues can momentarily lose their balance without fear of judgment, because the calm individual knows exactly what it feels like to be on the verge of breaking. They hold the line not because they are immune to feeling, but because they have cultivated the discipline necessary to prioritize collective stability over individual emotional release in the moment of need. This magnetic quality is further amplified by their listening skills. Calm people are often the most effective communicators because they are emotional translators. They listen not to respond, debate, or analyze, but purely to understand. Their stillness sharpens their perception, allowing them to hear not just the words spoken, but the wounded intention behind them. They see the underlying patterns of behavior and the pain that drives the superficial argument. This deep, non-judgmental listening makes people feel seen and understood, which is why talking to a calm person can often feel like therapy. They absorb the energy, decode the message, and return peace, rather than simply reflecting the conflict. Back. Their composure is a quiet promise. No matter how strong the winds of external pressure become, their internal compass remains aligned, making them reliable, powerful, and utterly essential during moments of crisis. A foundational difference between the emotionally reactive and the profoundly calm lies in their relationship with time. The anxious mind is obsessed with quick closure, immediate action, and preemptive prediction of the future. It operates on the flawed premise that rushing forward will somehow bring resolution sooner. The calm person, however, understands that patience is not inaction. It is a higher form of wisdom disguised as delay. Calm individuals possess an intuitive reverence for the process of unfolding. They know with absolute certainty that truth always reveals itself. It does not need to be forced. When a new conflict, opportunity, or decision arises, they resist the magnetic pull toward immediate resolution. They allow the situation to breathe, giving life enough space and time to fully present its reality, the motives, the risks, and the potential outcomes. This deliberate delay has a massive consequence. Calm people rarely regret their decisions. The typical emotional cycle is built on quick reactions that lead to predictable regret, a hasty word, a rash investment, a commitment made under duress. The calm person systematically breaks this cycle. They understand that rushing to fully comprehend a complex issue is the fastest way to misunderstand it. By allowing time to be their ally, they ensure that their actions are guided by perspective gained from stillness rather than the temporary heat of emotion. Their life is governed by a principle of chronological detachment. They are no longer trying to rewrite the past, predict every detail of the future, or win every argument in the present. They have stopped trying to manipulate time to suit their emotional need for certainty. Instead, they operate on a deep-seated foundation of trust, not trust in perfect outcomes, but trust in their own hard-earned ability to cope with whatever happens. This belief system is not rooted in ego. It is rooted in the proven memory of having survived enough storms to know empirically that they will survive the next one too. This mastery of time management results in a life less burdened by unnecessary mental clutter. They have an almost monastic discipline in simplifying their existence. Mental decluttering. They recognize that overthinking is merely fighting battles in the mind that don't exist in reality. They choose silence over the internal exhausting replays of past events. Prioritizing peace. They have learned the profound cost of caring about everything. They choose to let go of people, obligations, and conflicts that constantly drain their energy, valuing peace above all else. The power of stillness. They rely on simple, predictable anchors, a morning ritual, a quiet walk, a few minutes of conscious breathing. These small habits build a sense of internal control and predictability, which stabilizes the mind against external volatility. Without these small doses of stillness, the reactive mind begins to spin stories, filling the void with anxiety and drama. Ultimately, their relationship with time grants them a quiet, undeniable confidence. It is the type of confidence that feels like gravity, not loud or showy, but powerful and undeniable. It stems from the realization that they are no longer chasing quick closures or external validation. They have achieved a state of being where they are aligned with the natural, patient rhythm of life. They are no longer tossed around by every wave because they have become the ocean itself. A striking paradox defines the most genuinely calm individuals. They tend to be some of the deepest, most intensely emotional souls, yet they are simultaneously the least reactive. They have simply learned that expression does not always require eruption. This seeming contradiction is the clearest marker of true emotional maturity. They feel the full, magnificent range of human experience, profound joy, consuming grief, sharp anger, and deep tenderness, but they possess the disciplined awareness to choose how that energy is released and transformed. They practice a form of emotional alchemy that turns raw feeling into refined wisdom. Their sadness doesn't lead to drowning. It leads to compassionate reflection. Their anger doesn't result in destructive outbursts. It results in the establishment of clear, necessary boundaries. Their fear doesn't paralyze them. It sharpens their focus and converts into a quiet faith in their resilience. They have learned to hold intense emotion gently, processing it internally until it dissolves or transforms, rather than unleashing it to destroy their external or internal environment. This emotional mastery allows them to become powerful emotional translators for others. Because they are not busy reacting, they can listen and observe with an unmatched level of stillness, which, in turn, sharpens their perception. They see through the noise because silence provides clarity. This allows them to listen not just to the words someone is speaking, but to the often wounded intention behind the words. They do not just see agitated behavior, they see the underlying pain or fear that drives that behavior. When you speak to a calm person, the experience often feels therapeutic. They are not listening to debate, to respond, or to analyze you. They are listening purely to understand. They absorb the volatile energy, decode the true message of the emotion, and return a sense of peace. They create a non-judgmental space where the other person feels truly seen, not judged, not analyzed, but deeply understood. This kind of listening requires immense inner strength, as it is difficult to remain centered and soft when others are spinning in conflict or trying to draw you into their own chaos. Furthermore, their calmness acts as a powerful, non-verbal form of self-protection. When you consistently remain composed and refuse to join the drama, you become unpredictable to those who rely on emotional reactions for control or manipulation. Your stillness essentially makes you impervious to being exploited or drained by energy vampires. It is a subtle yet profound act of self-sovereignty. You protect your energy by refusing to let others dictate your internal state. The paradox concludes with their final realization about truth. They do not rush to conclusions because they have learned that truth always unfolds. It does not need to be forced. They give life, relationships, and decisions enough time to show their genuine reality. While others chase quick closure, the calm person allows things to breathe, trusting that patience is the ultimate tool for avoiding misunderstanding and regret. Their composure is not a final destination, but a continuous, intentional discipline they choose in every moment. The cumulative wisdom gathered by the calm individual leads them to an ultimate, liberating realization that defines their entire existence. Reacting to everything makes you a prisoner of everything. The louder you must be, the more dependent you are on external validation and the immediate world. True independence, the highest form of human freedom, is achieved only when your internal state becomes non-contingent upon external circumstances. Calmness is not merely a survival tool, it is a philosophy of life that redefines success and meaning. They shift their pursuit away from chaotic external metrics, chasing validation, fighting for shallow victories, or achieving conventional success, and redirect their focus entirely toward meaning and profound self-awareness. They measure their life not by how much they accumulate, but by how peacefully they live and how clearly they can hear their own thoughts amidst the world's clamor. This profound stillness results in clarity. They start noticing how much of life is simply noise pretending to be important. Once this fundamental truth is perceived, the tendency toward self-simplification becomes inevitable. They declutter not just their physical space, but their schedules, their thoughts, and their relationships, choosing less external stimulation, but experiencing more internal depth. This selective focusing is why they are rarely overwhelmed. They have learned to see the core purpose within a situation rather than being distracted by its fleeting, dramatic surface. The quiet confidence they radiate is magnetic, precisely because it makes no demands. It is the type of strength that doesn't shout. It simply is. It stems from the trust that they have built within themselves, the knowledge that whatever future storms may arrive, they possess the emotional resources and the neurological training to navigate them without shattering. They have learned that happiness and pain are both temporary visitors, both fleeting, and in that radical acceptance, they find a peace that does not depend on what happens next. For the calm person, the final triumph is not escaping the storm, but becoming the stillness inside it. They do not control the wind, they learn to move with it. They do not fear uncertainty, they embrace it as an integral part of the dance of existence. This journey, from anxious overthinker to grounded anchor, is the definitive arc of emotional growth. Calmness is not something you are born with. It is something you grow into, deliberately and intentionally, by choosing to return to stillness every single time the world attempts to break your rhythm. And every time you choose to return to that core of composure, you become a little stronger, a little wiser, and ultimately much, much freer.